You know exactly what you need to do, but something invisible continues blocking your path. Hours transform into days, days into months, and that goal that should change your life remains a distant ghost. While others advance, you remain trapped in an endless cycle of preparation. What you don't realize is that it's not a lack of knowledge, resources, or luck. It's something much deeper, a mental prison so familiar that you don't even see it anymore. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to unlock the force that already exists within you, but has been systematically sabotaged by patterns you don't even notice. This isn't just another empty promise. It's an awakening that separates those who merely dream from those who truly achieve. Because if you don't break this pattern now, you'll continue to watch your true potential slip through your fingers as life passes by. Your mind is programmed to repeat the past. Napoleon Hill discovered this fundamental truth after studying the world's most successful individuals for over 20 years. What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary isn't talent, education, or opportunities, the ability to break free from mental patterns that keep recreating yesterday's limitations. Every morning, you wake up with the same thoughts that shaped your yesterday. Your brain, designed for efficiency, follows the neural pathways of least resistance. These mental codes, formed through years of experiences, fears, and limiting beliefs, dictate your actions more powerfully than any external force ever could. They are the invisible architects of your reality. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself tomorrow will be different, only to find yourself making the same choices, taking the same actions, and inevitably reaching the same disappointing results? This isn't coincidence or bad luck. It's the direct consequence of mental programming you haven't yet learned to override. What would your life look like if you could break this code once and for all? Would you finally write that book, build that business, create that financial freedom, transform your health? The gap between where you stand today and where you truly desire to be exists for one reason only: the mental code that keeps pulling you back to familiar territory. The moment has arrived for you to decide. Will you continue being controlled by an invisible force that doesn't serve your highest potential? Or will you take control of the programming that has determined your results until now? Napoleon Hill didn't just study success, he decoded it. After interviewing Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and hundreds of the most accomplished individuals of his era, he discovered something remarkable. Success leaves clues in the form of mental patterns. The most fundamental of these patterns is what I call the Hill principle of mental domination. Your dominant thoughts will materialize into physical reality with absolute certainty. This isn't mystical thinking, it's the practical mechanics of achievement. Your brain is constantly filtering millions of bits of information, focusing only on what aligns with your dominant beliefs. This selective perception then determines your actions, which create your results. Consider Thomas Edison. After thousands of failed attempts to create the electric light bulb, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." While others would have coded these experiences as evidence of failure, Edison's mental programming interpreted them as necessary steps toward inevitable success. The difference wasn't in the external circumstances, it was entirely in the mental code. Your current circumstances, your bank account, relationships, health, and achievements are perfect expressions of your dominant mental patterns. They could not be otherwise. This realization can be either devastating or liberating, depending on how you respond to it. Ask yourself honestly, what mental code has been running your life on autopilot? Is it a code of limitation or possibility? Of fear or courage? Of procrastination or decisive action? The first step to freedom is recognizing the invisible chains that have been binding you all along. Can you feel the weight of these mental patterns now? Can you see how they've been determining your outcomes, relationships, and opportunities? This awareness is the first crack in the prison wall. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must actively rewrite the code. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It craves the familiar and resists the unknown. This biological tendency, while designed for survival, has become the greatest obstacle to your evolution. The repetition loop works like this. Your beliefs determine your thoughts. Your thoughts generate your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. Your actions create your results. And your results reinforce your original beliefs. It's a perfect, self-sustaining system that will continue indefinitely, lest you consciously interrupt it. Napoleon Hill identified this cycle in the lives of thousands of individuals. Those who remained trapped in mediocrity continued to run the same mental patterns, while those who achieved extraordinary results had learned to disrupt this loop at its source. The foundational beliefs. Henry Ford exemplified this principle when he declared, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." Before building his revolutionary assembly line, Ford had to first break the mental code that said affordable automobiles for the masses was impossible. His competitors weren't limited by technology, they were limited by their mental programming. To break your own repetition loop, you must first identify it. What story do you tell yourself when faced with opportunity? What's your automatic response to challenge? What pattern emerges when you trace the connection between your thoughts and your outcomes? Once identified, the pattern must be interrupted. This requires what Hill called white heat, an emotional intensity strong enough to override established neural pathways. Simply recognizing your patterns intellectually won't break them. You must infuse your awareness with enough emotional energy to hardwire new connections. Right now, as you read these words, your future is being determined by mental codes you may not even be aware of. The pattern will continue creating the same results, the same limitations, the same unfulfilled potential, lest you make the decision to break the cycle once and for all. What will you choose in this critical moment? Will you recognize this opportunity for what it is, a chance to rewrite your mental programming, or will you let it pass, becoming just another piece of information that doesn't translate into transformation? One of Napoleon Hill's most profound discoveries was the concept of the mastermind, the extraordinary power created when minds unite in harmony toward a definite purpose. But this principle extends beyond groups of individuals. It applies within your own mind as well. Your consciousness is not a single entity, but a community of thought patterns, beliefs, and impressions. Some serve your highest aspirations, while others sabotage them. The dominant patterns, those you've reinforced through years of repetition, form what Hill called your mental attitude. This internal mastermind is constantly at work, determining which opportunities you notice, which actions you take, and which results you achieve. If your mental attitude is programmed for limitation, no external opportunity, no matter how promising, will be fully leveraged. Consider Edwin C. Barnes, who had the burning desire to become Thomas Edison's business partner. With no resources, connections, or qualifications, conventional wisdom would have deemed his goal impossible. But Barnes had reprogrammed his mental code to recognize and seize opportunity. When he finally gained a minor position in Edison's organization, he didn't see it as a lowly job, but as the critical first step toward his ultimate goal. Years later, he indeed became Edison's partner, marketing the Edison dictating machine and amassing a fortune. The difference between Barnes and thousands of others who wanted to work with Edison wasn't external circumstance, it was his internal programming. While others saw obstacles, he recognized stepping stones. While others waited for opportunity to find them, he created it through his dominant mental attitude. Your own internal mastermind is working right now, interpreting these words according to your existing mental code. Is it scanning for reasons why these principles apply to others but not to you? Is it automatically referencing past failures as evidence for future limitations? Or is it recognizing the profound opportunity before you've a chance to rewrite the programming that has determined your results until now? The power to redirect your internal mastermind lies in one place only: your conscious choice in this moment. Will you continue allowing the same mental patterns to create the same results, or will you establish a new dominant thought that must, by the immutable laws of mind, materialize into a new reality? Napoleon Hill identified desire as the beginning point of all achievement, not casual wishing, but a burning obsession that tolerates no opposition. This type of desire transforms your mental code at its foundation, reprogramming every aspect of your thought process. Most people never experience true desire. What they call desire is merely preference. They would prefer more money, better health, greater success. But true desire, as Hill defined it, consumes your thoughts, dominates your conversations, and materializes in persistent action despite all obstacles. The distinction is crucial because only burning desire generates enough emotional intensity to override existing mental programming. Your brain won't relinquish established patterns for mere preference. It requires the overwhelming force of obsession. Consider how Mahatma Gandhi, though not among Hill's original subjects, exemplified this principle. His desire for India's independence wasn't a mere political position, it was an all-consuming passion that transformed him from an ordinary lawyer into a world-changing leader. The intensity of his desire reprogrammed his mental code, which then influenced millions to adopt new patterns of thinking about freedom and non-violent resistance. Your own desires, if genuine, will similarly transform your mental code. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If your desire hasn't yet materialized, it hasn't yet reached the necessary intensity to override your existing programming. This isn't meant to discourage you, but to challenge you. How badly do you want the changes you claim to seek? Is your desire powerful enough to wake you up earlier, keep you working later, push you through rejection, and sustain you through the inevitable challenges of achievement? Or is it merely a preference that crumbles at the first sign of difficulty? The quality of your desire determines the power of your new mental programming. Lukewarm desire produces lukewarm results. Burning desire, the kind that occupies your thoughts during quiet moments and energizes you despite fatigue, creates unstoppable momentum. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. Will you continue with desires that lack the intensity to rewrite your mental code? Or will you commit to cultivating the kind of burning obsession that Napoleon Hill identified as the first step to extraordinary achievement? Faith, the blending of reason with conviction, forms the second cornerstone of Napoleon Hill's formula for reprogramming your mental code. This isn't blind belief, but the practical application of confidence to your dominant thoughts. Hill discovered that faith operates as a catalyst, accelerating the manifestation of thoughts into physical reality. When you infuse your mental patterns with unwavering faith, you create what he called thought impulses, which broadcast your dominant beliefs to everyone and everything around you. This explains why two individuals with identical external circumstances achieve dramatically different results. The distinction isn't in their opportunities, but in the conviction with which they hold their dominant thoughts. One approaches challenges with faith-filled expectation. the other with doubt-filled hesitation. Their mental codes produce precisely the outcomes they subconsciously expect. Helen Keller, though blind and deaf, refused to accept the mental programming that said her disabilities determined her capabilities. With unwavering faith, she wrote, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Her extraordinary achievements weren't despite her circumstances, but because she refused to let circumstances dictate her mental code. Your own results reflect your level of faith with perfect accuracy. The areas where you've achieved success are those where your faith has been strongest. Conversely, your areas of struggle reveal where doubt has contaminated your mental programming. Most people misunderstand the relationship between evidence and faith. They believe evidence must precede faith. I'll believe it when I see it. But the fundamental law of mind revealed by Hill works in reverse. You'll see it when you believe it. Faith isn't the result of evidence. It's what creates the evidence. This principle operates whether you're conscious of it or not. Your dominant beliefs are already creating corresponding circumstances in your life. The question is, are you deliberately programming faith into your mental code, or are you unconsciously allowing doubt to determine your results? As you consider this question, recognize that this moment offers a critical opportunity. You can continue with your existing levels of faith, producing the same results you've always experienced. Or you can make the conscious decision to elevate your faith, chemicalizing your thoughts with the conviction that must, by immutable law, produce new outcomes. What will you decide? Will you remain bound by the mental programming that has limited your achievements until now? Or will you infuse your dominant thoughts with the kind of faith that transforms invisible desires into tangible realities? Autosuggestion, the deliberate programming of your subconscious mind, is Napoleon Hill's master key to transforming your mental code. Through this process, you can literally rewrite the operating system that determines your perceptions, decisions, and actions. Your subconscious mind accepts and acts upon any thought impressed upon it, whether positive or negative, whether deliberately chosen or unconsciously absorbed. This incredible power works tirelessly to transform your dominant thoughts into physical reality, regardless of whether those thoughts serve or sabotage your aspirations. Most people's mental programming occurs without their conscious participation. From childhood, they absorb limiting beliefs, fearful perspectives, and self-defeating patterns from parents, teachers, media, and society. These unconscious installations become their mental code, silently determining their outcomes decades later. Hill discovered that successful individuals had learned often through intuition rather than formal instruction to deliberately program their subconscious through autosuggestion. They had taken control of the process that most leave to chance. Consider William Wrigley Jr., who built a chewing gum empire during America's Great Depression. While competitors retrenched, Wrigley doubled his advertising budget, explaining, "When times are good, you should advertise. When times are bad, you must advertise." This wasn't mere business strategy, but evidence of mental programming that recognized opportunity where others saw only threat. Your own subconscious programming determines your automatic responses to challenges, opportunities, and setbacks. When unexpected difficulty arises, do you immediately search for solutions or reasons to quit? When opportunity appears, do you instinctively take action or procrastinate until it passes? These reactions aren't random, they're the direct expression of your subconscious programming. The good news is that autosuggestion gives you the power to rewrite this code. Through the consistent repetition of new thought patterns, emotionally charged and vividly imagined, you can install new programming that automatically generates productive responses and recognizes hidden opportunities. This is where most people fail in their attempts at transformation. They try to change results without changing the mental programming that creates those results. They attack the branches rather than the root. But autosuggestion addresses the source, reprogramming the mental code that inevitably determines external outcomes. Are you ready to take control of your subconscious programming? Will you continue allowing unconscious patterns to sabotage your aspirations? Or will you harness the power of autosuggestion to install the mental code that automatically manifests your desired outcomes? Napoleon Hill made a critical distinction that explains why some people remain stuck in recurring patterns while others break free. The difference between general knowledge and specialized knowledge. This distinction is crucial to breaking the mental code that keeps you repeating the past. General knowledge, the kind acquired through traditional education, rarely translates into achievement or wealth. The world is filled with highly educated individuals who remain trapped in mediocrity because their mental programming hasn't shifted despite their information acquisition. Specialized knowledge, by contrast, is targeted information organized and applied toward specific objectives. This type of knowledge doesn't just accumulate in your mind, it transforms your mental patterns, creating new neural pathways that generate different perceptions and actions. Henry Ford exemplified this principle. With limited formal education, he surrounded himself with specialized minds that could execute his vision. When criticized for his lack of general knowledge, Ford famously responded that he could press a button on his desk and summon individuals with any information he required. His mental code wasn't programmed to store information, but to utilize it strategically. Your own achievements aren't limited by how much you know, but by how you've organized what you know. If your mental programming prioritizes information collection over implementation, you'll continue accumulating knowledge while your results remain stagnant. The breakthrough comes when you shift from passive learning to targeted application. This shift doesn't happen accidentally, it requires deliberate reprogramming of your mental code through consistent implementation of what Hill called organized knowledge. Consider your current approach. Are you consuming information, hoping it will somehow translate into transformation? Or are you strategically acquiring specialized knowledge that directly addresses your specific objectives? The difference determines whether you'll break free from past patterns or continue repeating them indefinitely. The mental code that produces extraordinary results doesn't value knowledge for its own sake. It values knowledge as fuel for immediate action. When you reprogram your mind to demand implementation of everything you learn, you create an internal environment where information automatically generates progress rather than mere intellectual satisfaction. The moment of decision has arrived. Will you continue your current relationship with knowledge, producing the same results you've always experienced? Or will you commit to transforming how you acquire, organize, and implement information? Breaking the mental code that has limited your achievements until now. Napoleon Hill identified imagination as the workshop where all plans are created before being transformed into reality. This power, more important than factual knowledge, is the key to breaking mental patterns that keep recreating your past. Your imagination operates in two distinct forms. Synthetic imagination rearranges existing ideas into new combinations, useful but limited to past experience. Creative imagination connects with infinite intelligence, accessing ideas beyond your personal experience and bringing forth truly innovative concepts. Most people remain trapped in repetitive patterns because they've allowed their synthetic imagination to atrophy. They see only what is unable to envision what could be. Their mental programming accepts current circumstances as fixed reality rather than temporary conditions awaiting transformation. Consider Walt Disney, who exemplified Hill's principles, though he wasn't among the original subjects studied. When told his idea for a full-length animated film was impossible, Disney didn't accept this limitation. Instead, his creative imagination envisioned possibilities others couldn't perceive. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs wasn't just a creative breakthrough. It was evidence of mental programming that refused to accept conventional boundaries. Your own imagination determines the borders of your possible achievements. When you encounter obstacles, does your mental code automatically search for reasons why progress is impossible? Or does it immediately generate multiple pathways around, through, or over those obstacles? This isn't about positive thinking, but about practical reprogramming. When your imagination habitually creates expansive possibilities rather than reinforcing limitations, you develop what Hill called success consciousness, a mental code that automatically translates challenges into opportunities. The development of this faculty doesn't happen passively. Like any mental muscle, imagination strengthens through deliberate exercise. By consistently directing your imagination toward desired outcomes, experiencing them vividly in your mind before they manifest physically, you literally rewire your brain to scan for opportunities that align with your vision. As you consider your current use of imagination, be brutally honest. Have you been using this faculty to expand your possibilities or to justify your limitations? Has your imagination been creating vivid, inspiring images of achievement, or has it been projecting fearful scenarios that reinforce inaction? The quality of your life is directly determined by the quality of your imagination. Will you continue with your current mental programming, or will you commit to expanding your imaginative capacity until it breaks through the boundaries that have confined you until now? Napoleon Hill's most profound insight might be his simplest. Knowledge isn't power until it's applied. This principle explains why so many remain trapped in recurring patterns despite understanding what must change. Without implementation, even the most revolutionary ideas cannot transform your reality. The mental code that keeps you repeating the past isn't disrupted by information, it's disrupted by action. Each decisive step you take creates new neural pathways, physically restructuring your brain to align with new patterns rather than reinforcing existing ones. Most people fail to transform because they've programmed their minds to value planning over execution. They perpetually prepare, research, and strategize, never crossing the critical threshold of implementation. This mental pattern, the prioritization of readiness over action, becomes a perfect system for ensuring nothing ever changes. Consider Colonel Sanders, who was rejected 1,009 times before someone accepted his chicken recipe. The average person would have interpreted these rejections as evidence that their goal was impossible. But Sanders' mental programming interpreted rejection as merely part of the process, not a signal to quit. The difference wasn't in the external circumstances, but in the internal code that determined his response to those circumstances. Your own results reflect your action orientation with perfect accuracy. The areas where you've achieved success are those where your mental programming prioritizes implementation over preparation. The areas where you remain stuck are those where your mental code values readiness over execution. This pattern operates below conscious awareness. You don't deliberately choose to postpone action. Your mental programming automatically generates justifications for delay that seem perfectly reasonable. I just need to learn a bit more. The timing isn't quite right. I should wait until conditions improve. These aren't conscious decisions, but expressions of subconscious programming designed to maintain comfortable familiarity. Breaking this code requires what Hill called immediate action. When you act before you feel ready, when you move forward despite uncertainty, you override the mental patterns that have kept you repeating the past. Each action rewrites your neural circuitry, programming new pathways that become increasingly automatic with repetition. The moment of truth has arrived. Will you continue with mental programming that prioritizes perfection over progress? Or will you commit to immediate, imperfect action that disrupts the patterns keeping you trapped in recurring cycles? The gap between where you stand and where you desire to be can only be crossed through consistent, persistent action. No amount of knowledge, planning, or intention can substitute for implementation. The decision is yours, and it must be made now. Will you act, or will you once again postpone your transformation? You've reached the moment of convergence, the point where understanding must become implementation. Napoleon Hill's principles for breaking the mental code that keeps repeating your past aren't theoretical concepts for intellectual consideration. They are practical tools for immediate application. The transformation process begins with a single, irrevocable decision. You will no longer accept mental programming that produces mediocre results. This decision, made with emotional intensity and unwavering conviction, becomes the catalyst for rewiring the neural patterns that have determined your outcomes until now. The process continues through consistent application of Hill's formula. First, define your desire with burning intensity, not casual wishing, but obsessive focus that dominates your thoughts and conversations. Second, develop unshakable faith that your desire is already manifesting, regardless of temporary external circumstances. Third, program your subconscious through persistent autosuggestion, installing new mental patterns that automatically generate productive actions. Fourth, acquire specialized knowledge directly relevant to your objectives, organizing it for immediate implementation rather than intellectual satisfaction. Fifth, exercise your imagination daily, creating vivid mental blueprints of your desired outcomes until they feel more real than your current circumstances. Finally, take immediate, decisive action before you feel ready, before conditions seem perfect, before doubt has a chance to intervene. This process doesn't just change what you do, transforms who you are. By systematically rewriting your mental code, you literally become a different person, perceiving different opportunities and taking different actions than your previous self could have conceived. The individuals who achieve extraordinary results aren't gifted with special talents or favorable circumstances. They've simply mastered the process of mental reprogramming that Napoleon Hill decoded through decades of research. They've learned to break the patterns that keep others trapped in recurring cycles of limitation. You now stand at the most important crossroads of your life. One path leads to continued repetition of familiar patterns, comfortable but ultimately unfulfilling. The other leads to the liberation of your highest potential, challenging but infinitely rewarding. The choice cannot be postponed or delegated. It demands your decision. In this moment, will you continue with the mental programming that has determined your results until now? Or will you commit to breaking the code, rewriting your patterns, and stepping into the extraordinary life that has always been your birthright? The power of that choice and the responsibility for making it rests with you alone. Choose wisely. Choose now. The life you've always desired awaits your decision.